Okay, a lot going on this week in legislation, and also we also have the big coaches convention coming up in Montgomery. But first of all, one of the biggest stories in the last 24 hours is SB 73, I guess, was withdrawn. So big thing, why was this a bad bill, Jerry?
Well, SB 73 kind of indicated that the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker pro tem, and all kind of people could appoint certain individuals to the Central Board of Control for the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Seemed to be a little bit of a fast move to fix the issue that the High School Athletic Association has regarding the Choose Act. So it's kind of intertwined, but man, I salute Mr. Chastain for pulling that bill. Everybody looks like they're pumping the brakes a little bit, and maybe we can find a solution that satisfies everyone.
Yeah, I keep hearing the thing or the idea about politicians taking over, the Alabama High School Athletic Association. And one of the things that just jumped out to me was, if you look at the politicians, they've had Social Security, they've had the United States Postal Service, and then they're in charge of the Department of Motor Vehicles. And to me, those are not very efficient departments, and the politicians, they've got enough on their hands, to have the Alabama High School Athletic Association, part of their oversight. The other thing, too, to me, when we're talking about that is when we've had conversations with politicians about what's going on in our world, I've been really amazed at how unaware they are, and I don't say this as an insult, but how unaware they are about how high school athletics works. No matter what they know about college athletics, no matter what they know about professional athletics, high school athletics, it's just an entity of itself, and it works in a unique way. One of the things, you and I were talking about too was we both listened to an interview with Coach Savarese, and we both had this conversation about how they want changes, and they want changes right now, or they want things that are problematic to to the Choose Act or whatever it is, their legislation, and they want our executive director to act independently, which we can't do that. So talk to us a little bit, Jerry, about how does a proposal become a bylaw?
Well, to circle back to your first part of that, I think it's important that we, as a group of educators, don't have fear to call our representatives and talk to them. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one way they're going to find out. Chastain even said so. He's talked to superintendents, principals, and coaches, and withdrew his bill. And that's a wise thing to do at this point. He could always reinstitute at any point that he feels necessary, and then see where it goes. But one of the problems, speaking with a state representative, is that if that bill were to pass, then that certain questions, for instance, someone's fine or eligibility that was rejected for whatever reason, would have to go through a portion of the state government that oversees those kind of things. And this representative said, we don't want that.
Yeah.
We already have too much to do. We don't want to make a decision on whether someone practiced out of season or a coach worked with a kid and outside the sport school year and those kind of things. So I think it's important to talk to them just to get some information on that. And it's an exciting time. We do have the Alabama Football Coach Association coming up next week, and just for a second, I'd just like to give a shout out. One of the Lifetime Achievement Award winners is my former coach, and now a coach that I work alongside of at Leeds, Curtis Coleman. He's got a Lifetime Achievement Award, and you talk about a great man.
Yeah.
that guy, and secondly, selfishly, man, what a D-line coach.
Yeah.
So he has really helped our kids at Leeds and in the past at Clay Chaltville and Huffman and Inslee, and man, what a storied career and what a man.
Yeah.
So congratulations to Coach Coleman on that.
Well, I'll even go back further than that, Jerry. You say he's great. You know, he was a great head coach. He's been a great assistant coach. Two things. Number one, you know, he always works my line camp, and he is a favorite. It doesn't matter if
he really is.
The kids from Fife.
Yes, they love
or
they love Coach.
They do, you know.
They love him.
Or the kids from Mount Brook or the kids from Hoover. I mean, he's always he's a favorite. But the other thing too is he was a linebacker. I'm pretty sure he was a linebacker at Livingston when I was an offensive lineman at UNA, and quite the football player too. You know.
Yeah, he was an All-American.
Yeah.
And coming out of high school, we got another fellow that works with us, Joe Lockhart. Coming out of high school, both those guys played on an all-star team in the state of Alabama.
Wow.
And so Mr. Joe helps us with the football team in Curtis, and to watch those two interact with each other is just incredible. And that's the impact that high school sports makes on all of us that get to play any kind of sport. That's a lifelong friendship. They didn't even go to the same schools, but that's a lifelong friendship because they got to play on the All-Star game together, and now their world is reconnected. So that's kind of a cool thing for you.
It really is. I did think of one thing I'm going to circle back on that you said about the politicians. I thought about this. You know, this was brought up to me this past week about why the politicians don't need to be involved in the association as well as, and Coach Savory sort of alludes to this in his interview, but, you know, these politicians, they all come from pockets and communities within the state of Alabama. And so let's just say, for instance, that a team were to get ruled ineligible for the playoffs or whatever it is. Well, they have a politician that represents them. Well, now that politician has got to politically stand behind this team and use his influence to try and influence other politicians. And whether it's the rightness, wrongness of the rule, well, now you've got politicians for political reasons trying to influence the ruling in this situation. Coach Savory's made this comment. He said, if you want to have a one-term politician, let them be involved in athletics, because if that thing goes the wrong way, well, now their entire constituency turns on them. So the thing that politicians need to realize, it's in their best interest to stay out of high school athletics for their own good. You know, and I thought that point that Coach Savory's made was a very good point.
You know, I listened to that. D. Mark Mitchell had him on a podcast, and I caught it on X and listened to it, and I thought Coach Savory's had great wisdom and a calming tone, and explained clearly why the actions that led to the TRO, the temporary restraining order, could not be completed in such a quick manner. And the way the organization is set up, it is governed, the rules are rewritten by the bylaws with proposals and then voted on by the members, which are all of us schools, both public and private.
That's a great
get to
point.
vote, and then if it's passed, then it becomes a bylaw, and those things can change. And some, I know one of the representatives I spoke to could not understand why you couldn't run it like a business to say this is what we're doing from now on. You just declare this way, or just rename the CHUSAC money as not financial aid, it's a scholarship or whatever. But you still have an inherent problem until you have the right language in a bylaw, which probably will come, to be honest with you, because it's a good thing in a way for kids and families. But it also opens up a door that we need to be careful of in the High School Athletic Association. It opens up a door for possible misuse and those kinds of, just like everything, to be honest with you. But it was interesting. This fellow was giving me his view, and I would try to say my view a little bit. And I kept hearing he would say, it's confusing that you're talking about the stuff that we provide, the schools that we built, this that we. I understood what he was saying, like they appropriated the money to fund education in the state of Alabama. I get that. I totally get it. But I was thinking, you mean me, John Q. taxpayer.
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
Yeah.
And so, I just think we got to keep talking on all these issues because, pointing fingers and having internet trolls that just type out certain things to try to stir up whatever. But if I'm a coach in Jacksonville or somewhere in Mobile or wherever, it's okay to call your representative and keep calling, and they'll talk to you.
One thing I've thought about in this is that the one of the biggest roadblocks for us to be able to come to a common agreement. The thing I think that's hard to get some of our representatives to understand is, like they see that all the transfers will occur for academic reasons. And as coaches, we realize, look, we're in a world now where probably most transfers occur for reasons other than academics, And to me, some of the things in the CHOOSE Act could incentivize transferring, from a school system point of view,
Well, here's the other thing. If you're a public school system and you make the decision, we are not going to participate in the CHOOSE Act because we want to keep our community school community. That's what we want to do. The more and more that sign on to this, especially next year when the financial requirements are waived, anybody can use it. You'd almost be foolish not to try to use it.
No doubt.
So then, where are the barriers going to be set once this goes? And a lot of times in this world, we set out a good idea. In and of itself, this is a great idea to help. Okay, get it, totally get it, support it.
Yeah.
All right. But there are no barriers or guardrails on this thing of things maybe that hadn't been thought of. But the good part is they're going to be in session again next year in 2027 in January, and you can modify the bill, rewrite the bill as long as everybody votes on it. So hopefully just these discussions will help that scenario because we're really in a fight for there's a thought process going on now that I need to take my 14-year-old child and put them in the best situation possible to succeed athletically. Mm-hmm. This is what we're seeing.
Yeah.
All right, and because that's the ticket. Well, I'm sure we'll get into this in just a minute. In the thousands are the numbers that have entered the transfer portal in college. And there's some different ways that recruiting is going to go in football, much less the other sports. So the opportunities for high school kids from a sport perspective has been severely limited now. It's very frustrating for us as high school coaches. It's not what we're used to.
Yeah.
And so you tie that back into what's the real deal. If you encourage a child to be educated, if all that falls apart, they've got an education. Yeah. They can survive in this world in a positive way and prosper even.
Yeah.
But you got to have guardrails on these programs that allow money to be transferred. But I've got a cousin of mine who had that very question. He has very small kids, and now with the CHOOSE Act money, where do I want to even start my kids in school? Mm-hmm. Because if we can utilize it at a private school or a participating public school, and it's a better school in their mind, in the parents' mind, why wouldn't you use it? You've got to use it.
Sure. I would have a lot more comfort in this situation if, the representatives from the athletic association and our politicians, if you just hear somebody like would say, hey, look, I see that there's problems, could be problems with this, creating transfer incentives. What can we do within the Choose Act? What can we do to head that off? That would not, it wouldn't show weakness to me. That would show incredible strength and wisdom if somebody would come out and say that. I wish that's
kind of like this podcast. We care about high school sports, so we want all perspectives.
No doubt.
And so nothing can be learned. No thoughts can be changed. We just pick a side and go one side or the other if we don't talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's what got us here, to be honest with you. Let's just talk about it.
No doubt.
See where it can go before our days are up coaching.
Yeah, no doubt.
Then hopefully someone picks up the mantle. I wonder this. This is something we hadn't talked about, but I wonder how the Alabama Football Coach Association feels about all this. I don't know. Maybe we'll hear on Friday.
Well, the minutes.
Or Thursday.
If you go back and you look at the minutes of the last meeting, Coach Wood had said, and it was when they were talking about removing the private schools or not removing the private schools, and he said, within the board, there are private school members and there are public school members within that. Matter of fact, it's probably more representative of, of our makeup of our football coaches throughout the state than what we have on our central board.
Probably, yeah.
But he made the statement, we can't reach a consensus here, and so, he didn't broach the conversation within the minutes, and maybe that's not the place to do it. We are going to get from that group, from our LFCA, we are going to get the State of the Union at our meeting, next week. But I would hope that he would. And it doesn't have to be that we have a stance either way, but just what we think could help our sport. And what are in an agreement on what are the problems of the sport.
I think it's got to be discussed like that. It's a great opportunity for all the coaches to participate in that. But that group doesn't necessarily have to really choose a side, but it's worth discussion. And it's pretty clear, and I think we feel this way too, that we're better together, public and private. We're better together in the state of Alabama as it stands today. Now, if there were, 100 or 200 more private schools across Alabama, that may be a different story. I mean, it may be a need just for competitive sake.
Yeah.
But we're better together. And, this week, I don't know what you're hearing, but you know how these leakers come out and we get like, this are going to be the classifications for the next 2 years. I think there's been 3 of them that's been sent to me. One very early with the numbers. Mm-hmm. Then we saw the one where it's 7 our private schools out, 7A, 6A have 32, and the rest are kind of normal. It pushes down the bottom of 6A into 5A and so forth. And then yesterday I saw, I think it was Jerry White or someone on Twitter or X comment about that the big private schools are in and 1 through 4A, mm-hmm. So the smaller private schools might be out. None of us know. That's all rumor type of thing. But I'm excited to find out on Friday because I have felt almost paralyzed in making a schedule or commitments. Mm-hmm. And I don't get a lot of feedback from coaches either wanting to play. I've reached out to some, hey, make sure week 0, week 10, week whatever. And I've had a couple kind of push the brakes on that. We don't even know what's going to happen. You've had any of that go on?
I have. The one thing that I experienced was, so you start from, okay, this is the region that I'm in now. And so that's right. Sort of where you start from. But when the numbers come out and you say, okay, this school's probably going to move up to 7 if things stay exactly like they are. And we don't even know that.
Right.
So you start from where you are right now, and so you do start reaching out to teams. Well, you go, okay, I've got 0 taken care of, I've got 1 taken care of, I've got 5. Whatever my lottery pick is, whether it's two through
Right.
9, whatever. I've got to decide whatever that is.
But then
anyway,
you got to know home and away. That's
got no
the
home
big
and
deal.
away. That's a big one. So, but one of the things I discovered was this: when that first one came out, the very first one came out with all the different regions, man, it created complete hysteria. I mean, we had people locked in that were calling saying, Coach, I just don't know if I can play you for this reason, this reason, this reason. And I said, well, let me tell you this. I'm going to give you this. If this is accurate, I said, if they come out with the reclassifications, and I said, this is 100% accurate. I said, our greatest problem is not what region you're in or what classification you're in. Our greatest problem is we've got a leaker on the inside that's giving somebody a head start on doing their schedule. And I said, we have got Armageddon from within. I said, so let me just say this. Every year one of these come out. And I said, and every year people, their hair gets on fire and they start changing everything. And I said, from my experience, this is not accurate. Now, if we look at on Saturday morning, we start going back through that and we say, oh my gosh, this was right down the line. Yeah. We're going to have a different discussion, and it's not going to be about what classification or what region that we're in. That's why I don't think that happened, because
I don't think so either.
It would mean basically that we don't have an association anymore.
But let's get into this, just for somebody that might pick up this podcast and doesn't even know that high school football exists as a matter of education. Here's what happens on Friday, and this has become a bigger deal now. That's streamed. Mm-hmm. The release, release of the classifications and regions are streamed, and we're sitting there like the. Like an NCAA team, see if we're going to be picked in the tournament. Where do we land?
Yep.
All that kind of thing. But that is a unbelievable day, and I'd even say it like this: releasing it on a Friday, that makes it a little tough.
Makes it very tough.
What you have to do, or what I have always tried to be involved with in whatever region I was in, as soon as that comes out, we need to have a region meeting right away, draw our numbers, figure out what our region schedule is going to be, because you will most likely have an off week. Then you got to find a common person that has an off week in another region that you can play, and then you got to decide home and away, which is pretty easy in the region part because it's already pre-drawn. You just draw a number and fill out your schedule. Yeah. But then you could have 0, 1, 5, and then let's just say number 8 is our off week, and then you could also have 10. So you're looking, depending on your region size, at filling 3 to 4 games.
Yeah.
And so it is. It's a big day on Friday. I mean, it's busy.
I'll say this. The last year, maybe the last 2 years, we had it in December. And it was right before Christmas break. I like it better in January, because what happened last time was that thing was released either the day we were getting out for Christmas or the day before. And now we're having to do region meetings within Christmas. Well, people within the region, they're going on trips that they've planned. This is better in January. I just say a Monday.
That actually happened to us. Tyler Robinson was declared, the St. Clair County was declared the overseeing school.
Yeah.
And so we all called Coach Robinson at St. Clair County and said, hey, when can we meet?
Yeah.
He said, Coach, I'm on the way to the mountains.
Yep.
And we're going on vacation for a little bit. And he said, you go over there and all y'all meet up.
This would be the sweet spot to me if it's on a Monday. Like, I'm sitting there thinking,
yeah, no doubt.
We're 2 weeks out from getting back to school. We've sort of got our kids settled. We're in a workout routine. We're all going to have to focus on this. The other thing I like about it, too, is, it's right before we do have our convention, the AHSAA convention, and the coaches are together, and, they've got a board down there where we can put looking for this game. Of course, by now we get so much stuff on social media, but I like the January release. I just wish, if a Monday could improve it.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're doing it now, but, we'll just have to work on the phone through the weekend,
Maybe someone would write that up in a proposal.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have asked me, or it's come up since the SB 73 came up, and how all this works, and trying to explain why rules can't be changed in an instant, as if you were a CEO of your own company. You just can't change the rules like that. Tell us about the proposal process and what the proposal process is in order to establish rules and bylaws for the AHSAA?
Well, like any school can put up proposals, and usually you join with another school, and as the year goes on, you're thinking about throughout the year what would make the game more fair, what would make the game more efficient. And I'll share this as far as the spirit of that. I had a conversation with someone. Do you remember when the bill came out about the NILs? All right, so the bill came out about the NIL, and so Mr. Harmon requested reach out to your representative. So I'm reaching out to a representative, and I'm on the phone, and I'm talking to him about how the NIL would be bad for the state of Alabama. And he makes the statement, and he said, well, first of all, he said, why? And I said, because it's going to look like college football from this standpoint. The affluent communities are basically going to take this thing over. The Ohio States, the Texas, Miami now. The people with the communities with the resources they're going to dominate the game. And he made this comment. He said, wait a minute, why would you be against this bill?
You shouldn't be.
Well, and I said, I don't represent Mountain
That's
Brook.
right.
When we're putting up a proposal.
That's right.
And, I'm on the All-Star committee, and when I step into that room, I'm no longer representing Mountain Brook.
That's right.
It's just like what we're talking about here. It's bigger than Mountain Brook.
It's bigger than you.
It's bigger than Chris Yeager. Right. It is about the state of Alabama. So when we're looking at proposals, and the first thing you look at, are you making a proposal? And you can tell. I mean, you can tell people that are making proposals. Are you making a proposal that's better for the game of, or just high school athletics in general?
Right.
As far as efficiency and fairness, or are you making it what's better for your school? And to me, the ones that always have the best, that people that really resonate with the coaching community and the athletic community are the people that you look at and you go, you know what?
It's best for all.
That's best for all. This just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so everyone gets to vote on it. And then after that, it goes to the Legislative Council. And then after the Legislative Council, it goes to the Central Board for approval.
Just as a matter of explanation, so you have a school and a group of coaches in the school, and probably an athletic director in the school, and the school principal. The school principal is the only one that can officially write the proposal
Correct.
into the place that they can write it. So it's wise to get all the information from coaches that coach other sports because they're the experts in that sport.
Yeah.
And get these ideas. Like basketball shot clock, it's been up forever. The way baseball and softball align region areas and all that seems a little bit confusing at times.
Yeah.
The way the area tournaments are played, and you basically in this little short window of time in basketball have played your area opponents twice, and then you play again.
Yeah.
So all those things are just healthy things for us to look at. So if we have an idea, then we have to take it to our principal and say, we support this. Chris Yeager at Mountain Brook supports it. This person at another school supports it. Let's put all our names on it, and it'll write a rule. Like last year, Proposal 19, all schools identified their transfers.
Yeah.
Well, we need to make another proposal that says, and that be included, and we'll get into this too because we need to explain some of our people that watch want to know what Dragonfly is, but include that in the Dragonfly roster for all high school coaches to see.
Yeah.
All right. It went there. So AHSAA is compliant. They do make us identify our transfers.
Yeah.
But it's not
the
viewable to all schools.
It wasn't what we
need to rewrite that.
Correct.
That's the process, and then it's sent out to be voted on.
It's got to be cleaned up. And here's another thing too: some of the rules that are, some of the proposals that are submitted, it goes to the medical advisory board. Like some of that was like some of our summer practice things, like proposals that people have put up, like, can we go out in shells 3 days? Can we have a week of shells, stuff like that? And I was conversing with somebody on the medical advisory board. This blew me away, and I never thought about this. When they look at it, it was okay, you've got to, if you look at the student athlete, so you're talking about a 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old player. And said, let's just look at it from the standpoint, and this was how it was explained to me when that actual proposal was mentioned to the medical advisory board. You got a 15-week season. Okay, so now they're going to be in pads for that much time. So people that bypass spring training and say we're going to have a jamboree week 0. Now you're talking about that 16 weeks. Plus, you're going to have padded practice, and said so this was. I thought it was a great phrase.
There's a total of 19 or 20 weeks you could go straight.
Could go, and so they said, look, we're not talking about a college athlete. We're not talking about a professional athlete. There is only so much tread on the tire, and if you start but if everybody, like we all want to, coaches all want to get the jump. We all want to move ahead. We all want, but and it says, look, if everybody's at the starting block at the same time, and we say ready, set, go, then the product that you're seeing week 0, everybody basically they're bound by a very similar preparation. But the bottom line is you're trying to preserve the overall health of the youngest players and players that haven't even developed yet. And so when I heard that, because I really was I've always been for let's have 2 or 3 days in shell. What's that going to hurt? But when I heard that, and the reason I'm saying this is, the rules go by the medical advisory board too, but they look at it totally different than we do. Like I did not see it that way. I looked at it, I thought, man, we could go in shells and we could have an OTA and we could do all that stuff. But then their reasoning to me made a lot of sense.
To that point, it wouldn't be bad to look at the model that they have in Georgia, where you actually are allowed to start as if in Alabama, if you didn't have spring training and play a spring, you can start the last week of July. Well, they could start even earlier than that, but they have 2 off weeks within the season.
Yeah.
And they push the state championship game back 1 week. First of all, 15 games, that's too many.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's too many.
Yeah.
But part of winning the state championship is do you win the battle of attrition?
Yeah.
Because that many weeks you're going to have kids miss a game or 2 for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So it's important that we take care of them. I think our coaches are doing a great job of taking care of our kids, because you realize that's a little bit of the secret sauce.
Yeah, no doubt.
But you got to do enough to make sure a young player can develop courage in having contact the appropriate and safest way possible. So it's a mixed bag, but that's a good point about the medical advisory board.
We've hit a sweet spot in Alabama. Like if you look at the population to participant ratio, especially in the sport of football, we've hit a sweet spot. Ours is at one point it was the highest in the country. If you look at just the number of players that you have in the sport of football in relationship to the population, ours is high. And like in Georgia, they start the last week of July. Well, the championship teams, they're done the Friday before Christmas.
Yeah.
And like you're sitting there going, really now, is that good? So there's some of the things like, hey, I wish we could practice football 365 days a year.
Right.
If it was up to me, I probably would wear our kids out, But thank goodness there are people, that have input and have oversight that look at it from a different perspective.
Well, I disagree with you. I disagree that you would wear your kids out, not Chris Yeager, because you would find out very quickly. The first year you made the mistake of overworking them.
True.
And you didn't get as far as maybe the potential of your team could.
That's true.
You would adjust. And I tell you, this is what I think of all the time, because I was raised up old school, and that's my teams, perform in an old school way as far as physicality. We demand that kind of thing. But then you got to look at what's too much. Mm-hmm. You got to teach them enough that they understand how to perform a block and a tackle and how to protect themselves, keep the head out, all those kind of things. But then it's like, well, are you doing it too much and hurting yourself? If we had a couple of off weeks, man, those are golden in the season. Yeah. And it's hard to determine when you want the off week, because if you have it week 5 and you are good enough to go to the state championship game, you got another 10-week season coming.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then, Jerry. All right, so maybe 2 off weeks in the season are would be optimum. And I know that financing your football team gets into this, but what if we had 9-week seasons? What if we had 8-week seasons and then the playoffs?
You know, I know coaches that, for whatever reason, because people wouldn't play them or whatever, have played 9 games in a year and they loved it.
Yeah.
They had 2 off weeks within that team, especially if you're a perennial playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you know you're good enough that we should go 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds in the playoffs. Having 9 games instead of 10 games.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you another thing that I have to look at. We always play Helena in a preseason jamboree, and then we play week 0 to start our season. And I really have to think of that, because the reason we play Helena is because they are a physical bunch. We try to be a physical bunch, and that just prepares you to get all those fumbles and little operational things out of the way before week 0. But then I think, man, last year I lost my best receiver to an ACL injury in that game. Then you almost get a little scared about that. It's quite a quandary, to be honest with you.
It is, really is.
I want to interject. Chris, you played a team in the playoffs that you lost to that played 9 games in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get the sense that they were more equipped or maybe a little bit healthier? Or how much of a difference in your preparation did that make, that team only playing 9 games?
Well, they were a very talented football team, for one, and I'm not sure, if they had played 10 games, if they would have been a lot different. But I do know this. I know they were a very healthy team, but I think it's an incredible question, but I know the other side of that is, look, we've got to have – somebody's going to have 5 home games and somebody's going to have 4. Can 4 home games fund my football program would be the big question. Well, if you're consistently playing deep into the playoffs, it would be funded, but
perhaps the state legislature could kick some funds over our way and fund our well, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
There's fun stuff going on around all these things, and as we see, we wanted to speak up because we care about high school sports. Boys and girls going through this endeavor is a worthy thing. And so we started this, or you started this. Our great Emmy Award-winning producer, William Galloway, kind of taught us how to do it well. And now we're starting to get some feedback. One of the things that I see in the feedback is, what the heck is Dragonfly? I keep hearing these guys say Dragonfly, and, I don't have a kid in school anymore. What in the world is Dragonfly? Can you explain to everyone exactly what is Dragonfly, who can view it, and so forth?
Well, it's a way for all coaches to place online. I guess you'd say it's in an application. What would it be called?
Software.
Software. It's software. But anyway, it's a software of identifying everyone that's on your roster. It gives information within there that coaches can exchange that's useful in height, weight information, the year of classification, and everybody that's in there has to be academically eligible. Isn't that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And so it's got all this information anyway. But coaches can share it, and it's in real time too. When somebody's
not even share it, we can just pull it up.
We can pull it up, and it's and so everybody that we see on film, like if we see number 7 on film, used to what we'd have to do is we'd have to swap a hard copy of rosters.
It was mandated.
It was mandated, and you had to do it during the film swap.
That's right.
All right, so but. That's just the way that we swap information. It's just a way. It's a modern way. It's a 21st century.
So to clarify what you're saying, that one part of that's a hosting site for us to enter our rosters, and those rosters have a series of checks. Do they live in the correct place? Are they academically eligible? Did they get a physical? Do they understand what concussion? It's encompasses a whole lot of stuff.
Yep.
So each school, every athlete in every sport, we have to enter those things in, and we can see the background information on our kids, whether they have completed all of the forms that are necessary, and they understand, the inherent risk of sports, what are the symptoms of concussion, first aid, sportsmanship, all these things that you have to.
And it also tells you if they're cleared in those things. Like, in other words, if there's things that are pending, if there's a class pending, this player's not eligible yet. So we get to really see in real time the eligibility status of our players.
And we can't pull them over to a roster until they have cleared all those avenues. And we can't coach until we clear all our avenues in Dragonfly.
That is correct.
All right, but what that roster does, we all of us in the coaching community can create a login, and we can get authorization to view any roster across the state. Okay, and we're looking at simple ways to handle some issues, like we started the whole thing because of the transfer task force. Is transfer situation a problem? This would be one way to police that. So in the Dragonfly, going back where you stopped there just a second, is we use it in our sport to say, okay, on film we see number 22 at running back, number 11 at receiver, quarterback is number 1. Well, we want to create a document and tell our kids this is so and so, this is his name, put the name on there, height, weight, class year, all right, and that gives us the starters. And then when you play a team a couple of years, next year 7 of these kids are coming back, and so forth. That's the way we use it as a functionality for a coach in scouting the opponent for the next week. And so continue on about what else. What would be the advantage, information wise, to put whether a kid that's his home school, he was here when he started the 7th grade. He's graduating here in the 12th grade. He's a HHHH. Or this kid came from another school in 8th grade. He's a T, maybe a legitimate T. That's a good thing. Salute you.
Yeah.
But it also would allow any coach to say, I wonder where that kid went. You remember the 8th grader was a pretty good player? Wonder where he went. We search up some rosters. Bam, he ended up at so-and-so. Little self-check, don't you think?
Yeah, the thing, too, that I haven't thought about until you started walking through that scenario is, if you see a player and you say, okay, they've got 7 starters coming back, and, they're homegrown kids from that community, and you've seen them, you can go back and you can check the previous years, but all of a sudden, to me, a player, he's been in the system for 3 years, or he's been in the system for 4 years, or his whole time, as opposed to a player that's just come into that system. Yeah. It's a little bit different mindset as far as your preparation really for, competition, just from a competitive standpoint, but from a fairness standpoint and trying to keep a level playing field. The biggest thing is, to me, is if you see a bunch of T's on a roster. If you see a roster full of T's, and the bottom line is, you and William were talking before we started about the colleges, how they're doing roster management. And so what happens is, I heard a college coach, he made this comment. He said, if we're not recruiting players that are getting poached, we're not recruiting players good enough to get to win. If we're recruiting players, if we're recruiting those players, then they're going to get poached in 2 years, and we start all over. And so that's the college model. The college model is it's roster management, okay? And so we just don't. Do we want to mirror that model in high school? Do we want? Here's what it all comes down to: this. If you look at our mission statement, it says education through athletics. Well, what exactly does that mean? Well, here's what that means. When a player enters your athletic program, for us, a player enters our athletic program in the 3rd grade. We have core values in our 3rd through 6th grade. We have core values in the 7th through 9th, and we have core values in our varsity. The core values, there's a couple of things that are a strand that remains the same throughout. There's some that are unique to whatever stage of life that they're in. But at the end of the day, we're trying to use athletics to instill in them values that are going to benefit them and they can use for the rest of their life. And so that's totally different than the college game. I mean, it's totally different than college athletics. That model would not work in college athletics. If somebody in college said, we're going to use that model and we're going to compete with that model, you wouldn't last 2 years. And it would be a complete and total failure because you're competing with people who are managing and recreating their roster every single year, you know. So let's go to high school athletics. So now in high school athletics, if you see a bunch of those T's, that means that more than likely, rather than using the players from your community to construct your roster, you're basically involved in roster management every year. If you see, and there's a number when you cross this threshold, and we know what the number is, but when you cross this threshold, you're involved in roster management. Well, it's true in high school too.
Yeah.
In high school, if you've got a team that is committed to education through athletics, and they compete against a team that is involved in roster management, the outcome is very, very predictable.
You know, you went back to say we chart over the years that we play a team. All right, this kid's a sophomore. He got to play this year. I can reasonably expect that he will be a starter at that position the following year. Little concerning when you see a team you play, say, has 6 seniors on the offense. You think, well, next year they'll have to replace a little over half of their starting offense. And then here comes some names in there that have been at other schools, and they're a junior or senior as well. Somehow that guy ended up at that school. Now they got a new left tackle and got a new quarterback.
Yeah.
And those those are the alarmings.
I worked a game before where I was doing some work, and I looked at the roster, and I said, I called out this young man's name for another school 4 or 5 weeks ago. He doesn't go here. He's not this position at this school. He plays for this other school, and we played them 2 months ago.
Yeah. I want to say this, too, along the lines of what you just said, too. All right, so let's just say that you're on a team, and let's say that you're on offense, and you've got 8 seniors. And let's say that 8 seniors leave my team. Okay, so this is what the beauty to me of high school football. You got to rebuild your offense. Okay, so here's where your eyes go. Here's where my eyes go. Okay, what's in that class below this? Okay, all right, so, and you look and go, God, I don't have much, and you're going to struggle. Well, you know what? Here's the beauty of high school football. Struggling ain't always bad.
No.
There's a lot of great lessons to learn from struggling. You know, I don't have to go and grab the brass ring every year, but those kids can walk away with something just as valuable as the team that had great success on the scoreboard and then one loss column. But what I do is I look to my players, and I better have done a good job in developing them. And here's what the best thing.
And that's the beauty of coaching.
That's the beauty of coaching.
Fun part of coaching is taking a kid who we thought, maybe 8th grade, 9th grade, is like, man, I don't know, this guy.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden he grows a little bit, he keeps practicing, he keeps working in the weight room, and then he ends up being a great player for you. There is nothing better in our level of coaching in the world than that right there.
Well, let's take this, Jerry. Okay, I look down at this kid, and I think, I don't think we can win with this kid. And so what I do is I go out and I find somebody to replace him, and that kid never gets to step in and prove me wrong. I've had more kids that I thought, he's not big, he's not fast, he's not strong, but there's something inside of him. He's a winner, and and I've had him prove me wrong. The thing that I couldn't see, he knew it was there. But if I do this, if I go out and I get a player and I just say, the players from my community, they're not good enough. And I go out and I get a player from another community and insert it in front of him, that kid goes to the bench or more likely quits the sport, and then he never gets the greatest lesson.
That probably flows through your community, so less people end up playing
No doubt.
the long run. What's funny is we had an interaction, and the very thing that was happening at a particular place, they now are upset about. Now all of a sudden, our kids are getting shorted.
Yeah.
And you can't do both.
Yeah.
If you dance, You know, you got to go wherever that dance
play the
led.
fiddler, yeah.
So, but going back to what we're talking about, just to explain the Dragonfly, just a hosting site where we can see information on a team that we would play or any team. It also keeps our school in check in that are all these kids academically eligible, which, you know, used to be kind of the most important thing. You know,
It was.
Remember those days?
It was, yeah.
All right, so now we made it so easy for kids to be eligible too. Back when I was coming through, you know, they still had to have the 4 core, but man, there's all kind of avenues to make up classes and online,
Virtual,
and
yeah.
I mean, you're not trying if you're not eligible for athletics these days, and so it's a hosting site to make sure that the parent and the child understand all of the things that are associated with that sport. And so the advantage to having the T or the H on there, it just keeps a little quality control of people that you're playing against. Says, well, all right, now we're playing a team with 3 transfers. Okay, who are those transfers? What position they play? That's usually like kind of normal. 5, maybe kind of normal. 7, kind of normal. 17, 20, 22. Now we could a little bit self-police because, to Mr. Harmon's credit, he told us we just don't have enough investigators. We're going to increase the number of investigators, all that kind of thing. Yeah. You know, the application of it we can help with by seeing where our own kids ended up, which we can do now.
Yeah.
All right, but we can see where other people's kids ended up. Like, oh yeah, my buddy over at whatever. That was a kid that played for him for a couple of years. Yeah. Wonder what that scenario's like. So it's just a wonderful tool. But that's what Dragonfly is.
Yeah. The thing that it would do too it would give everyone a picture. What's the state of our game right now? You know, it's what is the state of our game? Are we drifting more toward the college? Are we going to the point of no return?
Yeah.
You know, but where are we now? And maybe people don't want to look. They don't want to lift up that curtain and see.
Again, the whole reason we're even doing this right here, because you and I can talk on the phone for hours like we always have and just have our own conversations. The reason we're doing this here is Coach Harmon said to us in all of his district meetings across the state that non-compliant transfers is the number one issue we have. Mm-hmm. That's the whole reason this is even an issue. If the AHSAA executive director said it's not an issue, we're probably not even going to waste our time talking about it because we know nothing will happen. To his credit, he's trying to work through all these landmines to get to, but which, by the way, what a guy to want that job.
Yeah, for real.
What a terrible job. And I don't mean that bad, but, man, what an impact he can have. He has an opportunity to make a tremendous impact. A lot of those guys had good impacts, and some not so good, to be honest with you. But
the timing that he walked into the job, too.
Man, I mean, right at the apex of those things. And so, I'll tell you a legitimate thing about the transfer portal. We all have kids now. We've lived long enough to this that have been through getting extra COVID years. I had one kid that played 7 years of football in college, now plays in Canada. We got a kid the other day that called me, and great young man, and a talented young man that other schools tried to get to come to their school. That's a story for another day. That's probably a cool story for you to hear. And he called me, and he stayed 2 years at the place he was at, and he said, I've entered the portal. And he actually talked to Coach Coleman and myself. That's the 2 guys on the coaching end he talks to. Went all over. Now he ends up at Troy, and he utilized the system to benefit himself. I salute that. We salute that. That's just a different model than what we have in high school. And so when the coaches start coming by recruiting, you just listen long enough, you start hearing how this thing is working. One, they are extremely frustrated and working like a dog from the portal opening until you fill out your roster. And so there's different models. If you're at an Alabama, Auburn, Ohio State, LSU, whatever, and Miami, you're in the elite class of money available. And, baby, let's get the best football team we can get this year. We'll worry about next year. That's kind of where the trend's going. But the majority of our kids now are going to be probably below that level. FCS, Division II, Division III, some even NAI will take those opportunities. I had a coach come in yesterday, and he's at an FCS school, good school, and he was explaining the way they work now. So he said, number one, any NIL money that we have, because we don't have a lot, he said we use for retention. So if a kid says, hey, I'm going to enter the portal transfer, see if I can make a little money in this thing or whatever, if they could match it, they want to keep that guy if he's a good player. All right? And he said, we feel out of the transfer portal, this is our philosophy, we feel for need. If we lost one, we're going to try to find one. And then we have the balance of those 15 or so. We give out 15 scholarships a year now, use the other for portals. It's that kind of deal. Some schools are going like, we're all in on the portal, and if we get 3 or 4 of the best high school kids, we'll go from there, because if not, you'll get fired. You don't win enough, you get fired. Okay, that's all kind of good and so forth. And I started thinking, all right, with all the kids in the portal and this school's coming in telling me kind of their breakdown, I said, well, how do you even survive if you don't have a lot of NIL money and then you're giving it for retention? How do you upgrade or whatever? And they said, well, we still want to develop high school kids and whatever. And then he said this. I've never heard this from a college football coach before, but their philosophy and how they're marketing themselves now to recruits is, look, you come to our school, stay a couple of years, 3 years, 2-3 years. We will develop you. We're an awesome program for development, and then if you're good enough, you can go on and make your money in NIL at a bigger school. They're marketing themselves that way. Isn't that amazing that we've come to that?
It's a junior college concept.
It's a junior college concept.
I was talking to a recruiter yesterday, and he was talking about a player that had gone to, I can't remember if it was Huntington or where it was, but anyway, he made this comment. He said, if you are coming out of high school and you're making big NIL money, you are very, very, those numbers are small. But he said, you have got to insert yourself somewhere in the, all right, so this is an incredible statement. The currency now in college football is film.
No doubt.
Because that's the only way that you can market yourself up the food chain.
Yep.
That if you've got to go somewhere. If you're the number 2 running back, and I'll be the guy a year from now, 2 years from now, development, be darned. The currency is film, and you have got to go somewhere, wherever that is. Yep, you got to get on the field.
I encourage my kids now, if you wait too long, you'll get left out of the whole deal. If it gets to a point, say the early signing period, the kid still feels, hey, I might can land at a bigger place. You start getting this time of year, late January, February signing thing in football, our national signing day, you better get a spot. It don't matter where the spot is. If you have an opportunity to get a spot, even if it's a school no one's ever heard of, and you can play, then you have got another year. Basically, you got your high school film they can see. Then you got post-high school film to get bigger and bigger. That's not a bad way to do it, because at the least you get to be part of a team, continue playing after high school. You're still in there getting the education. They're probably paying for some of it or all of it. So it's not a bad deal either way, but you better get a spot. I got a perfect example. There's a kid at UAB, Chris Bird's, awesome kid, fantastic kid. North Carolina State talked to him. Missouri talked to him. And it was so cold in this way. Missouri talks to him on a Friday or Thursday as we're working out. Talks to me, says, we want to get this kid up here now. We just lost a kid. We want to sign him. This kid's going to get to play at Missouri, all this kind of stuff. And said, we'll call back with the flight information, all this, the inner workings to get him up to Missouri. They called him the next day, less than 24 hours later. Sorry, bud, don't worry about coming. We signed another guy out of the portal. And you better get used to that if you're a recruit. So then he was like, well, I'm see about this thing. Well, North Carolina State, they kind of have him on the hook, like he's third on the board. Mm-hmm. And so if the other two don't hit, well, then you're in. And so I said, look, you got this opportunity at UAB. They're going to pay for your school. They're going to take care of you. You know, you need to get a place. Well, he goes to the place, and last year has an incredible year. To his credit, he's going to stay now for a third year and doing fantastic. The kids and the parents of the kids nowadays have to look at it totally different than even 10 years ago.
No doubt.
Well, and you get older. So there are two intangibles that I look at, and I look at Indiana winning the national championship Monday night. Size and age. And every coach, I think, will tell you at the college level, you got to get old and you got to get big. Yeah. Well, Indiana is old, and offensive lineman, one of them was 6'9", and so he's huge, right? But you talk about film, Chris, and as you get film, be it at a small school, FCS, D2, wherever, you're getting older, you get a year older, you get film, and all of a sudden, in Jerry's example, you got this great body of work. And so you're light years ahead of where you were 9, 10, 12 months before.
Yeah. And what this means, though, like going back to Jerry's original statement and even what you're saying, William, is what does this mean to the high school athlete? And here's what it means. Right now, because of the things that Jerry talked about, you know, whether it's a COVID year, and we can even talk about some of the temporary restraining orders that you've talked about, William, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what it means is the supply is far, 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 far exceeding the demand. So what it means right now is the opportunities for a high school athlete to be able to get scholarships it has really diminished. There are players now that would sign an FCS scholarship, and it would be automatic. You look at their measurables and everything, and like William said, they've got all the measurables. The thing that they don't have is they don't have the age. They don't have the development. So you're going to take a chance on a high school kid against whatever competition he was playing against, or I can sign, maybe an older player that's got some college film that's a little bit more of a known commodity.
Yeah, and you better sign that older player because you're going to get fired if you don't win.
No doubt.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think I want to address this too because I think fans, again, we're talking about the aspect of high school football and how this relates, but I think some fans of prominent SEC programs in this state and surrounding states would look and say, well, you signed this guy from so-and-such community college or such FCS school in California or this place out west or this place in the Midwest. Well, the guy has more starting snaps than your second-string guy who's transferring to another SEC school. So from a coach's perspective, you're looking at it saying, he has more playing experience, he's older, he's bigger. I don't care that such and such was at another Power 4 school. Is that right?
Yeah,
Now we're getting off on the college tangent.
Yeah, but
it still affects. There's trickle-down effect to exactly what you said.
Well, it affects opportunity for sure. But here's what it highlights more than anything. This is why, it's important to us. If you don't put guardrails on things, if you don't have rules, and you have people that violate rules, like we can see the college football model, the NCAA's oversight of that one coach told me yesterday, NCAA has already kind of put out information. We're looking to dissolve.
Yeah, well, the thing is,
you got to have guardrails on everything, or it will end up like there's a crash point coming.
Yeah.
Even for those that have many, many millions of dollars, the richest college program, there is a crash coming at some point.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't behoove them to not have rails on this to pay like a salary structure, number of years of service, all these kind of things like that. That's got to come to keep the game moving.
Yeah.
Or we're going to not even recognize it.
Well, the thing that the NCAA has become, they're just a ceremonial body. They give out the trophies, and do they truly legislate, and do they enforce they really don't.
Now
Do
they
you hear
just take on lawsuits.
Yeah, like now, there's an NCAA investigation. I'd like to know where I don't know of an NCAA
I had another coach, a separate coach, and I would never identify this coach for a million years, but a separate coach told me, he said, Coach, there are no rules.
Yeah.
He said, even if we tried to keep up with the rules, there's so many and so intertwined that this is the exception here, exception. He said, there are no rules. We're just doing the best we can.
Yeah. I've heard people talk about, well, how do we solve all this? And there's some good ideas out there. But what has to happen is, you have to have a team with the resources that's at the top of the food chain and say, look, to save this sport, we have to do this, just like they did in the NFL. I mean, there were NFL teams that were basically dominant, but to save the sport, there were guys that backed up and said, you know what, for the good of the sport, we have to do this. And it may not be the best for my organization, but we won't survive if the organization dies. Well, the NCAA, the leaders in the NCAA right now, to me, at the top of the food chain, they're not willing to do that. What they're just trying to do is to try one more thing that we can find an advantage, basically, to be better than the competition.
Isn't that why we're here, though? You talk about the trickle-down
100%.
effect, and NCAA is not enforcing rules. Coaches are doing all these things. As we talked this morning, Alabama basketball signs a guy who's had 3 NBA contracts. But that's why we're here originally, because we're concerned about the state association's enforcement of rules.
100%.
So all of this ultimately comes down, and it's moving faster and faster with each month and day. And
The good thing, William, that's a good point. The good thing is we can just look up at college football, and if there are no rules and people just move wherever they want, and super teams are built versus community teams, we can see where it's going. We're given a live, real-time look, like what you mentioned about the player that's had NBA contracts that now be able to play at Alabama. Where's that sport really going to go from this point? Yeah. If he had the power to get a TRO against the NCAA and he's going to be allowed to play, wow, look out for what's coming.
The thing that we're in danger of is, in the same way that the NCAA is just a ceremonial body, it's really not a rule enforcement. They no longer a rule enforcement body. I just don't want the Alabama High School Athletic Association to become ceremonial in nature, where they give out state championship trophies. They decide, okay, who's in the All-Star game. We give out the Hall of Fame and all that other stuff, and they become basically, irrelevant. We can look at the NCAA. We know the movie. We know the ending. We know what it looks like when the credits roll in. So we're getting a live and in color look, just like you said, at the ending of that story, and we just don't want it to be our story.
You don't have to look far. But we've got some friends over in Georgia now coaching, and one of them hit me up last week. Coached in Alabama for years and years and years. Has a super interesting perspective, but he said, "You absolutely, y'all state, Alabama, our state, does not want to go in the direction where Georgia is." He said, "To be honest with you, we have to recruit other people's players to survive in my little school and so forth." Then you look at Florida.
Florida, even worse.
Yeah. You look at Texas a little bit, like they've
in the Dallas area
had to really get serious about, even the miles you can transfer within. If you transfer within a certain mile radius, then you're ineligible, and if you transfer outside that 100-mile radius or whatever it is, then you are eligible. So everybody's dealing with these problems, and we get to see those things happening in real time, while our state remains a state that has high participation. Okay, I think the vast majority of our schools take the kids they have in that school in that community and play, and it's a rewarding experience for the overall goal to help a human being become more educated and a more successful human. Like Coach Saban said, create value for yourself.
Yeah.
And so that leads into whatever job they're going to go to. So we're seeing this happen in real time, and that's the only reason we're even speaking out. I had a much better life not having to, put yourself out on the line like this a little bit. You did too. We got great jobs, working great communities, work with great kids, and we don't need to lose the value of that because it is valuable. And being in this coaching fraternity, that's so valuable.
Yeah.
So, hopefully we can see what's coming and go on. But, man, I can't wait. Next time we talk, we'll know what region we're in, and that'll give us some more thoughts. And anybody needs a game, by the way, give me a ring. Within reason.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's good stuff.
I want to ask you one thing before we get out of here, and this doesn't even have to go on, William. But you had talked about you'd gotten feedback about the Dragonfly. All right, so one of the things that feedback I got was this. Okay, what do you say to the parent that in their mind they're at a failing football program, and I want to move to a program that gives my child a chance? So if you got a text like that from a parent, what would you say?
Good luck. Good luck to you. I hope it is. If I got a text like that, I would say, look, you got to do what's best for your family. Do it the right way, though.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. If it, we said it before, you said it. If you have an attractive program, you win a lot, you have great facilities, the community supports your school, you're a magnetic head coach, you're charismatic, people are drawn to you, we just salute you.
Yeah.
You're doing well.
Yeah.
You're doing great. But if you're going from a failing school and it's not an academically failing school and going just purely for sports, I would say good luck to you. But I'd say be careful because you might not get what you want, because if you're going there thinking you can play, do you not think there are others doing the same thing? It goes back to this. You want to be a big fish or do you want to be in a big pond? Which one do you want to be in?
One thing I was thinking about is, and this is what I texted back, first of all, define a failing football program. Because a failing football program is not necessarily a losing football program.
Yeah.
And your son may be the one that could change all of that.
Yeah.
And just think about if you've got a struggling program, the opportunities that are there for leadership, And to me, programs it's cyclic. Like if you have a community team, it's going to cycle through,
Sure. Yeah, sure.
And so that would be one thing that I would say, like we've said before, a parent has a right to determine what's best for their child. Now, when you make a move and it involves athletics and you're in a competition situation, it doesn't just involve your child. It involves other children too. So you don't get the final say in that. There's certain things as a parent you're not going to get the final say in. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get the final say when you move to a program, the starting lineup. You're not going to get the final say as far as what position your child plays. You're not going to get the final say in what plays are called. So, but as far as the direction and stuff, the thing that I would say as far as an educational purpose, if you're moving your child in the 10th, 11th grade for athletic purposes, it could be a thing where it may be acting the opposite of what you want from the standpoint, especially if you're leaving a good academic school or a solid academic school.
You better be right.
You better be right.
Because
there's also a great education in hanging in there and trying to change the culture of the program. And so, and then a lot of times the parents' perception of what a failing coach is may be a very good coach. I know good coaches who sometimes they have losing records. It's just the way it goes.
I think part of that too is our job. Like we need to convince our parents and our kids you are in a great program, and here are the reasons.
Yeah.
And you you should want to be a part of this program, and these are the following. That's part of our job
Great
too.
point.
You're
It's a great
going
point.
to have, I believe, you're going to have in 2026 just rogue people that over-evaluate their own child's talent. We've seen it for hundreds of years.
No doubt.
And they'll say, well, we want to go to that place. And used to, and I will still talk to them and say, well, let's talk about the reality of your measurables, your speed, your whatever the case. Still talk to them. But, when you get older, it's say like, bye. Because I can tell you, there's 81 other kids in there at Leeds that are proud to be from Leeds. They love it. And invariably, half of them won't really go, okay? And then every now and then you'll run across a kid that did go, and you'll see him, and he'll say, I wish I'd have stayed at Leeds, or I wish I'd have stayed at Mountain Brook, or I wish I'd have stayed at Center Point, or, I wish I'd have stayed with my guys. Too late now. That's why I say you better be right. You come in, but we've dedicated our lives to this. The coaches, the men and women around the state that coach, they have dedicated their lives to education, helping kids, and then to a sport that happens to be our expertise, our focus. And if someone thinks there's a better way, then good luck to them is what I say.
We had I had somebody ask me and said, well, do you have, kids that transfer to Mount Brook? And we have 400% more kids that transfer to Mount Brook than leave. We had 0 that left, but we've had 4 kids that have transferred in: North Carolina, Texas, Mississippi, and Colorado. And I asked them, why Mount Brook? Why'd you make the move? And said, we left in incredible schools. We left incredible sports teams. And when we left, we grieved. And we tried to find something that was similar to where we were leaving from. And I said, you know what? That's the reason to transfer.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
I get it. 100% get it.
I think you'll always have those that, the grass is greener.
Yeah.
And
and sometimes the thought is the path is easier. Like you said a minute ago, instead of staying and working through some of the problems, well, I can avoid them, and I can go to something that's already built instead of staying and building myself.
Well, I'll tell you this, and I'm guilty of it, I'm sure, in a lot of ways in my life. I mean, we're selfish human beings, and it is hard to look for the greater good. If you ever find a community that has that attitude, man, just hunker down right there if you're a high school coach, because they have the right values, and you're going to have a successful career until it runs out, because it will flip at some point, I believe.
Yeah.
Good stuff today.
Yeah, no doubt.
I thought this was going to be like a 10-minute conversation, and wow, we end up going. But there's a lot of good stuff today. William, you do a great job.
Yeah.
You pulled all these ideas out of us today.
We're going to have some more, and hopefully we have some more guests as well, in the coming weeks. But looks like we're hopefully aiming for a podcast a week or so, and talk about how we want any and all guests.
Good
Awesome.
stuff.
Yeah.
Good job.